Look how many. Look how many I collected. Yeah. Sorry, Papa, you're panting so badly. Okay, will you go? Will you go, sir? Will you go under the tree there? Good boy. Yeah, go, 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 go. I was picking some chamomile and I'm going to continue doing it a little bit longer because it's just perfect at the moment. It's morning, but there's no more dew. It's very breezy today. It's still very warm. Even though we've had a break in the weather, we had a bit of rain yesterday and the day before as well, and it was a bit cooler as well. Well, it's actually really just comfortable now. It's warm. It's like 20 degrees. So perfect for that. And I'm just about to finish my coffee as well because, I do need it this morning. I'm fairly tired. I usually make these videos or I record on Sundays during the weekend, and it depends what days or times I get out into the garden, but it's usually over the weekend anyway. And yesterday was a strange day, I suppose, because we had to euthanize one of our hens. Now, it isn't one of the ones that you would have seen in the last video, because that particular hen, Belle, she'd been in quarantine or in a separate area, not mingling with the rest of the flock for a couple of weeks now, and she just was not getting better. She wasn't getting that much worse, but she just wasn't getting better, and she's been sort of down for a couple of months. And anybody with hens, they know that if a hen is very sick, they die very, very quickly. But if they're in between and you're sort of able to bring them back a bit and they get a bit better, their system is still compromised, so they're never going to get that much better at the end. And they're only young hens we have. They're only 2 years old. So yeah, it was a difficult decision, and luckily our own vet that always has looked after our dogs and has previously put down. But yeah, our vet was able to put her down, and so at least I suppose that was something we did not need to do ourselves, even though that is a reality. If you go into like some poultry or small animals, it's just something you need to acknowledge, that if something happens to the animal, if they get injured, if they get sick, these are the decisions you need to make. And I suppose there's a lot of people that would do it themselves and have to do it themselves. So look, at least it was done for us. But yeah, it was something that we didn't take lightly. And then straight after, we went and actually started fencing in finally the field. And I know it was like a distraction for ourselves, all three of us. We went and started to do that. And that's really just to make sure now that the hens will have a big wide area to roam around, and they're not going to be wandering into the kitchen garden onto this side of the field anymore. I think then from overall this kind of anxiety from something like that happening, I just couldn't settle in the evening, and we're doing up our bedroom at the moment as well, so there was a lot of old paint that needed to be scraped off the wall. So I was doing that, and I did that well past 10 o'clock, so I was racked. My arms are even sore. So I was really, really tired, but no, I wanted to come into the garden. I've so much deadheading to do. Yeah, I've so much deadheading, and we have a bit of ball playing to do, and we have a match to go to this later in the evening, and we need to travel for that, so I don't have that much time to spend in the garden. But once next work week starts, then those days are gone again. So yeah, I want to catch up. As I said, there's just so much deadheading, and maybe even thinning the carrots as well. And yeah, let's see what else we get done with. Now, before I move away from this area, I just want to show you how pretty are these crimson coloured, crimson flowering broad beans. That's the name of them. Now they're only starting to open. I was quite late planting them, but because I had the seed and I had this little space here, I might as well get them planted. Like, there's a big bumblebee coming. Hi, which side you coming? Hey, there you are. Now, where did you settle? Where did you settle? There you are, crater. As I'm pulling the heads up, they actually sound like a bit of a popcorn. Pop, 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 pop. I'm going to dry them. Luckily, I have a dehydrator, and I'm just going to have them dried off nicely for just to be used in herbal teas. And chamomile is brilliant for anxiety. So this just smells like honey. You can't believe it. It's very strong, so you don't need a lot of it, but this is the time. They'll go over quite fast, and I definitely want to harvest as many as possible from this area, because that was the area where it seeded itself last year. So I'm even thinking maybe taking it out from here for next year, because it's just so big. You see, it's obviously gorgeous, and it is buzzing. Oh, it's amazing when adding flowers to any kind of kitchen garden, how many pollinators come in. And sure, otherwise, like, there's just fields around. Like, obviously it's full of buttercups as well, so they do have plenty to eat, but it really does bring them in here. Good stuff. Oh yeah. I've seen very little of the white cabbage butterflies around this year, well, so far anyway, but they're definitely around, because they found my spare Brussels sprouts. So look at that. Who's down here? The soil is quite dry as well. It's like a cutworm, a big chunky one. I have to bring a box for that, for the girls. I usually carry around with me whenever I'm just pottering around in the kitchen garden here are the yellow bucket for weeds, which anytime I see some, I usually just throw them aside, but I shouldn't. Like, it's just, that's why I have the yellow bucket for. And it's just so much easier to get them out when they're still small. Any little ones that pop up. But another thing is just an old yogurt pot where I gather any kind of slugs or a wine weevil, or this was now a cutworm, so I feed that then to the hens. But I have a brick in it, because this otherwise on its own would be way too light and wind can blow it away, but also slugs like to escape it if it's too hot and they've no place to cover, to go undercover. So at least this sort of provides a darker environment underneath, so they're more likely to stay inside the box rather than crawl out of it. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. I don't know how that had been hiding itself. The recent rains must have done a lot of good to it. But yeah, that's a big one. Now the brassicas I planted here probably about a month ago, a little bit maybe more, maybe end of April even, but most of them seem to be doing well. Well, obviously the lot of growth what you see are still from the turnips, but I'm happy to see that some of the purple sprouting broccoli are looking quite strong, and then I had the Brussels sprouts in here as well. They look okay as well, but I lost an awful lot of kohlrabi. I can still see a couple of the small plants here in between, but they're really small. Slugs took out a lot of plants in here, and then obviously the radishes. But luckily I have another bed with the Brussels sprouts that is doing strongly at the moment, but it's not netted, so I'm only looking for trouble, I'd say. But again, I suppose they were, like this bed here is quite exposed, and you'd even see it more on the further out bed where I also put more brassicas in, that the growth is really different. It's much smaller, and again, slugs have done way more damage up there. So if they don't just get going straight away, I find in my garden anyway, the slugs are a big culprit. It's a wet climate, so what do you do? And that is probably one of the biggest reasons I do not use any like the grass mulch. It's such a big topic to use the grass mulch. I've done it before, and I seem to be creating even bigger habitat for all those slugs. So it seems to work better to keep the soil bare, and obviously any kind of leaves that are touching the ground to get them off as well. Even though in the fruit trigger I teach us to harvest a little bit of rhubarb as well, and I do place those leaves down on the ground, but the planting there is way bigger. Yeah. That's yours. Good girl. Here, Coco. One more. Come on, Coco. Okay, Barbara, you take it. So. Yeah, Papa. Yeah. We'll go and see the yellow rattle. No, that's an orange ball. But the yellow rattle seed heads are actually doing really well. They're even starting to sound a bit rattly. And when I do deadhead, I do cut all the ways back next to the new, I suppose, like a joint of the leaves, because it will be pushing out new growth and new flower heads from there straight away. And I'm also just chopping the spent flower heads straight up into the wheelbarrow. That goes into the compost heap. They'll be composting down quicker then. also going to collect some of the rose petals that those blooms were about to go over anyway, but I'll dehydrate them as well while I have the dehydrator running and going for the chamomile. I'll actually collect them as well. They'll be lovely dried up. They smell so good. Foliage on a lot of the roses isn't looking great at the moment, even though we've had dry weather, but the sawfly larvae is out, which is called also a rose slug, and they just feed underneath the leaves of the rose plants, and obviously diseases then can get in as well once they damage the plants. And really the only way to get rid of them is to use insecticides. You see there's one here. You see how hollow they've actually even eaten the leaf? But there's a sawfly just there. Sawfly larvae, I mean, sorry, which is the slug, rose slug. I don't want to use insecticides, and I do want to start testing out that new rose tonic I did buy. You see the aphids on this top here as well. Like blue tits, I have doing great job around the place, eating up a lot of them. But it's usually at the very early spring time they do that. But I'm just hoping for the nature to sort of correct itself. You see how they're feeding there now? They've cut such big holes into them. Now I picked this one. I did not even, first of all, didn't notice the caterpillar. And there's actually two on it. You see them? I just saw the flower bulb was very distorted. That's it. See the camouflage so well. There's a big one under there. But this is what you're dealing with. This is nature. Now I've cut off loads of peony flowers because I never staked the peonies again this year. Next year, there's always next year. I promise myself every year that next year I'm going to stake them properly. And obviously when the flower heads are on the ground like that and they're blocking walkways, but especially if it starts raining at all, peony flowers make an awful mess. They really go sluggy and slushy and brown, and they can even discolor the stones here. So this now is going to be beautiful inside the vases in the house, and then once they're done in the house they go into the compost heap. So there's no waste in this at all. But isn't that gorgeous? So fragrant as well. They are beautiful, beautiful peonies. They actually last better, like the flowers even on the plants themselves last way better than the Shirley Temple one that I had in the corner there. So these are stunning, just stunning. And into the water now. Right, we're back in the kitchen garden, and there's just two things I want to show you. One is the Charlotte potatoes, because it's coming sort of to the end of their season now as far as the growing goes, because there's a lot of brown spot. They flowered probably about a week and a half ago now. They flowered, and there's a lot of brown leaf spot on them now. So the more that leaf spot is taken over them, the weaker they'll get, and eventually the foliage is going to die down anyway. So I just wanted to show you what condition they're in, because obviously they were very strong, big, healthy plants when they were in the greenhouse, and also up to about a week ago, and then you could just see the brown spots starting to creep in, and now there's a lot of it on the plants themselves, but that is common. The plant is weak and a disease sneaks in, so, and but it's going to be soon their harvest time anyway, so it's all on track. And then the carrots, which are netted just down there, and I need to thin them, and I show you the way that I'm doing that. So their pots were small, they're only like 12-litre pots, 10 to 12, yeah, but you see how much brown spot is on them, and that's just a disease that's coming from the humid conditions, and there really isn't anything to do about it. There's no point, especially when they're like second early potatoes like that. But there is a chemical mix you can apply on them, but there's no need, because obviously that's the Charlotte. So second earlies, we'll be harvesting it probably in 2 weeks time, I'd say. So in July, they're still very tall, and I sort of have to water them about every day, every second day, depending now how the weather has been, especially those hot days. Just, yeah, every day, absolutely every day. But now we have the main potato here, the big spud, but that's the main crop there. And you see how different the main crop looks like. Really healthy. Oh, I can't now remember now. I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4 different varieties, because the Desirea had double row of that, I'm quite sure. But they're starting to flower now. Aren't they just beautiful? And these are in much bigger tubs. I believe they were 40-litre tubs. But yeah, very different. Very different from the yellow foliage in here. So what I've done, and obviously, was water them thoroughly, and while watering it, obviously that will flatten the carrots. And even though I thought I sowed them very, very thinly, obviously I didn't, because I need to thin them. But what I then have is just fresh water, and I'm putting the carrot tops into that, because carrot tops are all edible, so you can make them into a salad. And what I find is that when I'm watering them like that, it flattens the carrots, and obviously the foliage then is all sort of in one place. It's not flopping around the area, especially if it's windy day like today. And that will allow me to see where exactly I need to cut them. And that's all I do. I just cut them at the point of the root. And I'm going to sort of half thin them now, and then probably in a month's time I'll come back and thin them again. But by that stage I should be able to get these kind of very skinny baby carrots already as well. So they'll be like 2, 3 harvests. And obviously I'm absolutely delighted at least that the carrots have come up so strongly, because of the parsnips have been just a disaster again this year. Even though I pre-judged shitted them and everything. They just, hardly anything came up. So at least we'll have carrots. I'm even actually able to pull some of the very thin ones out as they are, if they're in a big clump, but otherwise I would still cut them with the scissors. Then you end up pulling on the wrong leaf. You pull out what you didn't want to get out. It's really starting to fill up, isn't it? I'll just dip them into the water as well. The pain in the backside job, but look, I suppose it would be handier to sew them even thinner. But I really think I did. I was sure that they went in very sparsely. I was just cleaning up the turnips, and I'll take the ends of them off as well. And that was the biggest one now I got. But ideally I don't want to grow them that big. It just was in the middle of all the growth, so I had missed it. This is lovely. That's a nice size now. These were my spare sprouting broccolis that I kept, and the cabbage butterfly found it, and I thought I had picked them all off. Now, just the more I'm looking at it, the more I can see them, and I can see I've actually knocked one off with the water now again as well. But they are just so good at camouflaging, aren't they? 3, okay, I lost another one. There was 4 of them. You had to bring your ball as well, didn't you? You did. Every time you see me sitting down, you think there's a chance. Now, smell them. Smell them. Aren't they lovely? Yeah. Ah, mind the rhubarb. Oh no! As long as you don't throw the ball in with the chamomile. That's the only thing we don't want. Right. Time to put the rehydrator. Time to put the dehydrator on and get the rose petals and the chamomile drying. You could even dry the carrot tops really and just make it into a powder. Add it into a stew or something with a stronger carrot flavour. But yeah, I have to get in now and start getting ready because my son is playing Gaelic football and his team are in county final today. So fingers crossed they'd win, even though it is a tough team they're up against. But look, they've gotten so far, so let's hope they'll do well this evening as well, and we'll get all that hole in. But thanks a million for joining us today, isn't it? Yeah, I know, I won't dehydrate your ball. Come on, you can take that. And we'll see you next time again. Don't be looking at me under your eyebrows like that. No. I see it. I put these together, I think. How do we carry it all in? Huh? Will you help me? Will you? Come on, I'll throw it for you, so. Come on, I'll throw it for you. Come on.